Little to no impact for the average college student housed in an urban campus is not easily achieved. Efforts must be made in all daily practices, including eating, travel, and consumption. Investigating solutions for the college student and their staff to live in a manner that promotes the environment's health centers on the practice of eating sustainably. After all, every animal, especially humans, need to consume to live. At George Washington University, the majority of the students, especially the younger ones, are limited to dining options that are grocery items that are microwavable, refrigeratable, campus dining, or eating out. Students on the GW campus were asked,
What are your daily eating habits like?
Yeah, my daily eating habits consist of usually waking up in the morning, and sometimes I'll have cereal and milk in my room that I usually get from Whole Foods, or I will go out to breakfast at GW Deli or somewhere nearby that's convenient for me. During the day, depends on where I am. Sometimes I'll go out for lunch too, or I will go to campus dining facilities depending on what's most convenient. There are times when I often get a chance to cook my own food, which I'd like, but it doesn't really fit into my schedule or isn't convenient for me.
when polled on an anonymous survey online, it was reported 65% of students generally cook their own food, 45% in a kitchen, and 20% using basic dorm utilities. 5% of students generally dine on campus eateries, and 30% of students generally eat out. The question then is, how can students convert these daily practices into methods that are more sustainable? As the majority of the students seen in the provided research cook their own food, it is important that their ingredients are of the most sustainable variety. This means 4 things: eating locally, eating seasonally, eating unindustrial foods, and eating limited meat and dairy products. As documentarian and activist Colin Beavan agrees, the footprint of food comes from its production, its processing, its packaging, and its distribution. The 4 aforementioned guidelines for foods limit each step of a food's life cycle and promote it in its most sustainable way. Number 1. Eating locally. If you're not a farmer's market person, there are always options available for local eating at the basic grocery store. Take the Whole Foods on campus as example. As you descend the elevator, you are looking for a red pepper, so you enter the produce section. Instead of there being one easily located red pepper, there's a whole wall of vegetables. There are peppers from California, peppers from Israel, and peppers from Mexico. The task remaining is to find which pepper was grown closest to home, Washington, D.C. With some easy geography or maybe a quick Google session on the smartphone, it is clear to see which pepper is grown closest. First, check for the distance of the California red pepper. It is grown 2,307 miles from Foggy Bottom, Washington, D.C. Next, confirm the distance of the pepper from Israel. The Israel pepper is grown 5,907 miles away from Foggy Bottom, Washington, D.C. Lastly, find the distance of the Mexican pepper. It is grown at a total distance of 2,507 miles from Foggy Bottom, Washington, D.C. The pepper you should buy is the pepper grown in California. This is because it is the pepper that is grown closest to home and has to travel less distance. A grocery store isn't the one place where you can eat locally. Surprising to most, local eating in an urban environment is quite easy to do. Washington, D.C. is no exception, where the prospect of being a locavore is not only trendy, but quite popular. The warmer temperatures are home to a variety of both pop-up and planned farmers markets. Stringently hosted on local foodies and their products, the system of D.C.'s farmers markets is especially provisional to students. One freshman, Ashley, gave us her account of attending the farmers market that resides on campus once a week.
So I went and I only had like $5 in cash, but they actually have little G-World machines there now, so you can just slide your card through and they give you all these adorable like wooden coins that you can use instead, so that's pretty awesome.
The farmers markets come equipped with the credit school ID machines, which take the self-designated sum and convert it into valid tender for the vendors at the market. These large wooden coins are a quirky and clever way to create a small farmers market economy. Ashley was further questioned about what she had purchased when she visited the farmers market.
So I thought there would only be fruits and vegetables because that's usually what's at farmers markets, but they actually have a lot of like prepared foods. Like I got empanadas for dinner and soup, and in the fall I went and I got apple butter, and that was pretty awesome.
A man who sells produce for his local farm also gave us his take on local foods. So why is it better to buy local produce?
Because locally grown produce, number one, it's cheaper. Sometimes it's fresher than Safeway or Giant produce because they get shipped on airplanes and it's not really as fresh. You might get a better price for it, but in the end, fresh, locally grown produce is healthier than something you would buy at like a grocery store or something.
Eating local is a good option, especially if you want to be healthy for the environment and for your body. Number 2, eating seasonally. It is quite easy to eat seasonally, as some quick pre-shopping research will inform the student of which produce is grown at what time of year. For example, oranges are native to the summer months in the United States. This means the navel orange that you're craving in the month of February, grown and imported from South America, is one indulgence you'll have to overlook. Simple research and self-control is all you need for true, sustainable eating habits. Perhaps, instead of the navel oranges, you could try a sampling of apples and pears from the local market, or even from a local grocery store. Eating seasonally is quite feasible for the average college student on an urban campus. Number 3, eating unindustrial foods. By unindustrial, we mean in terms of packaging and processing. Packaging means less waste, which means less of this, and more of this. Processing means a series of mechanical or chemical operations on something in order to change or preserve it. Processed foods could generally be represented by the stereotypical junk foods, such as chips, frozen foods like pizza bites, frozen meals, and frozen fruits and vegetables, snack cakes, and others. Such foods are not only unhealthy, but contain unnatural and environmentally degrading practices to produce and generate more waste than necessary. Limiting consumption of such foods will reduce the large waste generation, promote sustainable food production practices, and hopefully improve the health of the consumer. Number 4, eating less meat and dairy products. Quite opposite the sermon of vegetarianism, the qualm to eat less dairy products and meat stems from the large impact that typical dairy farms and animal production houses have on the environment. Such is nicely summed up in this video.
I was just guessing at numbers and figures, pulling the puzzles apart. Questions of science, science and progress don't speak as loud as my heart. Nobody said it was easy. It's such a shame for us to part. Nobody said it was easy. No one ever said it would be so hard. I'm going back to the start.
It is clear that the mass production of animals and dairy is harmful to the environment. Such large farms pollute, cause waste, and impact the health of animals, all which is unhealthy for the planet Earth. Moreover, the amount of energy needed to produce animal products and dairy is at least threefold the amount of energy needed to produce other agrarian products, such as rice and corn. It is simple to cut down on the consumption of meat or dairy from every meal to perhaps once a day on weekdays and twice a day on weekends, a lenient but yet limited form of diet. Being strict in dietary restrictions of such food groups is not only healthy for your body, but healthy for the environment. To sum it up, if you are a student on an urban campus environment, it is quite easy for you to cook at home and still eat sustainably. Such can be achieved by eating locally, eating seasonally, eating unindustrial foods, and eating less meat and dairy products. These 4 guidelines for eating cover the majority of student eating patterns. But what about the rest, eating out and eating campus dining? Restaurants and fast food eateries may be the easiest options, but are generally, and especially the latter option, not the most sustainable. However, picking and choosing your places to dine at is a simple solution to control what you consume. Sites like eatwellguide.org direct users to restaurants near them that are local and operate sustainably. Campus eating, however, is a whole nother topic. George Washington University's options of campus eateries follow a takeout pattern, where students choose from a buffet-like selection and package their meals into a container. Students at George Washington University were questioned about what they thought about the sustainability of the school.
I really don't know if they're sustainable. I think it really depends on the source where the food comes from. I know at least at J Street when I go, it's more sustainable because most of that food is coming from local farms within the metropolitan DC area, and it's more sensible to get more local food like that than food that comes from a longer distance, because there's less money and less time being spent to get that food here, and it's being consumed when it's fresh.
Yeah.
And it's helping sustain local farms versus farms that are at a distance from us. And so I feel good when I go there knowing that the choice that I make by going there is more sustainable than going to a chain or to a different restaurant that might take its food from other sources that are further away from DC, and it doesn't necessarily support the economy or the food culture within the DC area. I also like going to Whole Foods because I know that most of what they have is also from local farms, and it's really fresh. So I also find that to be a better and more sustainable choice. And that's something that I've definitely come to enjoy about GW, is that sustainability really is a priority here, and not just at the school itself, but I mean outside at Whole Foods, of course, and at other restaurants where sustainability is taken as a priority.
The staff who work at J Street were also questioned about the sustainability in the school.
All right, what's your name?
My name's Kayla Pingle.
And where do you work?
I work at Auntie Anne's in J Street.
Would you say that overall you guys are a sustainable company?
I don't know as a whole, but in our store specifically, not particularly.
Do you guys recycle your products?
We don't recycle anything, any of our waste. We throw all of our cardboard away and all the receipts.
As GW students, we have a responsibility and many opportunities to take the lead in sustainable food and dining sustainably. Through this video, we hope you learn more about the issue and take advantage of the solutions. We end our video with a list of ways that you can get involved through GW's sustainable dining programs and initiatives. Remember the importance of dining sustainably, especially on a college urban campus.